Good morning, everyone. This is Patrick Michaels, the author of the newly published book Ascendance, and I'm coming to you live from my kitchen. We're going to start the first session of how to obtain big goals, right? How to take a huge goal that you have and chop it down into small pieces so you can easily consume it and be able to achieve it. So I'm starting here. I've got my coffee ready, so I'm good to go. And like I said yesterday, it's all about starting from the mental aspect within, right? It's all about starting with yourself, critiquing yourself, being a little bit more critical of yourself, but also being able to know that you can achieve the goal that you're looking for, right? That's what this is all about. So the first thing that I always do is you always try to mentally prepare yourself for whatever goal or whatever task you have in front of you, right? You want to see the positive outcome. You want to see yourself achieving or succeeding or manifesting whatever you have in front of you. And that's what's so important. The first thing I do every morning, and a lot of the books that I've read, is starting off your day by meditating or ending your previous night by meditating, right? It helps clear your mind. It helps you clear any distractions or any negative outcomes that you had the previous day or any doubt that you have going forward, right? So you want to put yourself in a good mental place first. And then the first thing I do is when I get up out of bed in the morning, after you meditate, you start to think about all the things that you're grateful for, all the things that you're happy to have in your life, your family, right? Your wife or your husband, your friends that you have, the place that you live, the city that you're in, the job that you have, right? You start to go down that list, and you're going to start to feel a lot better about yourself or about what you have in front of you. Or if you woke up and you didn't really want to get up or you didn't feel very good at that point, this is what's going to help you turn it around. Because if you're feeling grateful for things and you're constantly dwelling and focusing on those things, it's going to start to put you in a better place mentally, right? So if you want to achieve any kind of big goals, you have to start with yourself. You have to start between what's in here and here. Is all that matters. What's between your two ears, what you believe about yourself, what abilities or talents that you feel that you have, and go from there. That's what this is all about. The one book that I read, The Success Principles by Jack Canfield, was a great book. I read that 2 or 3 times already. Every time you read it, you always kind of get something more out of it, another aspect that maybe you didn't know before about yourself. And he says, train your brain, which is huge, right? You have to trust. Your brain has to trust what you're telling it, what you're feeding into it. And if you continue to tell yourself, oh, I'm going to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, or I'm going to do this today, or I'm going to do that. And if you don't follow through with those things, your brain eventually will not trust what you're telling it. It'll give you a pass. It'll give you maybe 2 or 3 passes, and then it'll just say, well, you're not going to do this. And it just shuts down. So the hardest thing for me to achieve anything was training my brain, positive reinforcement internally before you start to go out and try to do something externally. It's so critical, that relationship, right? Like we said, if you're constantly feeding in positive messages and you're following through and you're taking those actions, it's going to be easier for you to take on larger challenges, bigger goals, right? That's what it all starts with. And another book that I read was The Secret. Like, that was a huge milestone for me because the one thing I cover in my book is that when I was a little kid, I'd watch sports games, right? And you'd watch the game and you'd watch the post game when they had those interviews. And I always thought, I know that these athletes are talented, they have the ability to be in their professional sports, but what makes some of them great? Like Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, even someone like Connor McDavid, right? Someone who's very young and he's only 20 years old and he's already won the Hart Trophy, right? How does he prepare? How does he mentally get himself ready every game to achieve bigger goals, right? It has to start with internal. It has to start with how you feel about yourself and also the situations that you put yourself in, the people that you surround yourself with. If you have people or family members that are constantly telling you, oh, you can't do that or you can't achieve this, you're going to start to believe that. You're going to start to buy in to what they're telling you. And then that's not going to get you to where your goals are. It's not going to help you achieve anything if you're constantly having someone talk you down, telling you why you can't instead of why you can, right? So it's really important. one thing that I did in my life was I was able to, over time, start to cut out some of the people that weren't helping me get to my goals. I had to take responsibility of why they weren't manifesting for me, but I also wanted to kind of cut out certain aspects of your life that aren't helping, that aren't adding value to you. And that's probably the hardest thing. That's probably the hardest thing that I've had to do, is cut out people and friends and even some family members, right, that you've known for your whole entire life. It's time to move on from those people. So it's also about believing and trusting what you're telling yourself, right? It's positive reinforcement. Every morning I'll get up, after I start to express gratitude for the things that I have, you start to focus on the goals that you have in front of you, things that you want to achieve. But also, you have to start to build yourself up, right? That's what it's all about. So I always tell myself, there's nothing I can't do, or I'm going to inspire this many people today through my story, or through day-to-day operations, right? Just going to work, being pleasant with people. You'll notice how when you send that message out to people, you're going to get it directly back. And that's something that I tested when I started to read these books. And yet you quickly realize that if you walk by someone and you give them a smile, chances are you're going to get one back. If you're angry and you're pissed off, it's going to radiate out of you, and that's what you're going to get in return, right? Everything that you put out is going to return to you. And that's one thing that took me a long time to realize and to implement. But when you do, you start to see the benefits of it. You start to see that if you're willing to help other people and go a little bit further for someone else, they're willing to reciprocate. They're willing to go that extra mile for you. And that's how you're going to achieve things. You can't achieve any kind of goal by yourself. It's just not, you're not big enough. It's not going to happen. You're going to need other people to help feed that passion, feed that drive with you. It all starts with you, but you're going to need to be able to build a network of people that are going to help you. And that's something that I didn't do very well when I was a young person. I always thought that I didn't need anyone else because I could do it myself. And that may work for some things, but when you're trying to achieve bigger goals, or you're trying to be more successful at anything in life, you're going to need those people. You're going to need that support system, that cast. And another thing that was huge that I learned about just this mental internal fight that you have with yourself is that if you continue to break that trust, to break that relationship, it's very hard to repair. That's another thing that book like The Secret, the things like the Success Principles, my book, Ascendance, will tell you, will teach you that you have to build up that relationship. It takes about a month of positive reinforcement and acting on those intentions to have it become a habit, to become something that you are going to be able to train. You're going to know that when you tell your brain something like, I'm going to do this today, I'm going to do these errands today, or I'm going to achieve this major goal, it's going to believe you, and it's going to start to push you in that direction. It's all about gut feeling, right? They always talk about intention and gut instinct and trusting your intuition, right? Things like that. And it's so true, because your internal system, your gut, is what's going to tell you if you're in the right path. All you can do is try to take a step forward, see the result that you're getting, and then either you're going to continue down that path, or you're going to start to maybe stop for a second, reevaluate, and go into another area. It's so difficult when you feel that you're by yourself, that you don't have any support system. And I'm here to tell you that you do. You may not see those people, they may not be right in front of you, but they're waiting. They're there to assist you on your way. When I was able to publish my book, or before that, right, when I was writing it, I didn't have anyone to publish it. I didn't want to self-publish. I wanted to have a little bit more credibility when I did release it to the market, right? I was a finance major. I was an accounting major. I wasn't an English major. But I felt that if I put something on paper that I really believed in, and I busted my butt for a year and a half to write it and to critique it and to edit it with an editor, that someone would want to take it in, would want to take on that project. And I was fortunate that my cousin Tim, who's an English professor, read it. And he's very critical. He's very black and white. Either he likes it or he doesn't. He's going to tell you. And he said, have you ever thought about publishing this? Do you ever think that maybe someone would want to take it and run with it with you? I'm like, well, I use it really more for a journal and to help me put away my past of difficult events, my emergency spleen surgery, loss of my grandparents, turning to alcohol for answers that is never right. It's never the right answer. But going through those events and learning that I can go through those events and build myself up from there is probably the most powerful lesson that you'll read in the book. That's what it's all about. No matter how down you feel that you are and you feel that you have really nothing left and you have no one that cares, if you start with yourself and then you start with that internal relationship that you have, you can do anything. You really can. I was in a really dark place. It was a really bad time after I graduated college. I made so many bad mistakes and hurt so many people with my words or with my actions. It was all coming back. It was all flooding back to me, right? Because everything you put out, you're going to receive. If you put out bad things, those are going to come too. And I do believe in the universe and God and Jesus and that relationship that you have, that everything you put out, it may not, it's karma, right? Everything that you put out is going to come back to you. It may not happen in a day. It might not happen in a month. But it's going to happen. It's going to come back. It's done. That relationship is already, that reaction, what's coming back is already there. It's going to happen if you want it or not. And I feel that that was just the karma coming back and hitting me all at once. And I was fortunate that I was able to physically survive that ordeal. But you know that once you realize that you have that relationship and you have the ability to change it, that's what it's all about. And that's something that it took me years to figure out. And I'm sure other people out there are going through the same thing. That's why I wrote it. And that's why I've gotten so much positive feedback from people. I've had over 200 people purchase the book. And I'm sure others have read it, maybe that just read a little bit of an excerpt from it. But there's so many good lessons that you can learn. And books that I've read, it took me a month to read each one, but I'm consolidating it, right? Because people want to read something short, to the point, that's very direct, and it's going to hit home. That's what it's all about, right? And so I'm going to continue to do a little bit more of these videos. I'm glad everyone is viewing and some of the likes that I've gotten. I appreciate it. Every Saturday morning about 10 o'clock, 10:30, hopefully I can get to my computer in time. But we'll start to do more of these lessons, right? Achieving a bigger goal, right? Where do you start? Well, the first thing we did today is we started with the internal relationship that you have, how you treat other people, right? What you put out into the world is what you're going to get back. And then now we're going to take the next step forward and go into, okay, now you have this big goal, right? How do you go about doing it? That's what's so important, right? The one thing that the Success Principles and also the Money Book by Tony Robbins had taught me is if you didn't have to work, if you didn't have to worry about paying bills, what would you do with your life, right? That's what we're going to cover next. You just think about that. Think about if you didn't have to pay any bills and you didn't have to worry about meeting a quota or meeting needs of other people. You just had to focus on what you enjoyed doing, right? Picking out those 2 or 3 things and then finding ways to be successful at it, right? To make money at it so you can survive and you can support yourself and support your family, right? So we're going to cover that next week. But thank you everyone for chiming in and watching my first video. Appreciate it. Bye guys.